Hello everyone, my name is Christian and welcome to my hobby blog. Today I'm very excited to say that we are now on, film 3 or day 3 of our 31 Days of Japanese Films video series that I've been doing. And today is a very special day because we are talking about one of the best movies of all time, if not the best film of all time. And this is one that I have seen many times. I've lost count at this point, which is quite rare. It's this film that I'm going to talk about today, Lord of the Rings, Killer Condom, and a handful of other films that I have lost track of how many times I've watched. But this one especially, I think, has a very good case for being the best film of all time. And what am I talking about today? Today we are talking about Akira Kurosawa's 1954 samurai epic. You probably know it already. If not, then you should know it. This is the film Seven Samurai. This is easily the best film of all time. I full-heartedly agree with anybody who believes the same because this is one of the best films of all time. It is very expertly crafted. The performances are so raw and very well performed. We have some of the best battle scenes that have ever been made, and it's all practical. It is absolutely amazing. But before we get into all of the positives that I have for this movie, which I didn't even write down all of them, I just wrote down the new ones that I noticed this watch. And I had the 2006 commentary track that was recorded by the Criterion Collection, which was a round table of many Japanese film scholars. The most exciting ones for me, who I look up to greatly, are Tony Raines and Donald Ritchie. And we also have two other scholars who are talking on the commentary track. And a lot of the info that I learned is from that commentary because that was the first time that I had ever listened to it. Because before I started the film, I was like, wow. I was thinking back and I was just running the movie in my head really quickly. And I could remember 90% of the film easily. Every scene, every shot. So I was like, okay, might as well listen to the audio commentary. And I learned oh so much. And I already have a very deep appreciation for this film. It is consistently in my top three. Usually my number one spot when I sort of give anybody my favorite films of all time. This one is always up there. And what is the story of this film? What is sort of the conflict going on? Well, there's an alliance of samurai and mercenaries and bandits going on. And they are rampaging across the land, stealing food, stealing water, stealing clothes, weapons, anything they can from every town that they pass through. And with that in mind, they come to this one particular village that are now preparing for harvesting. Rallies are preparing to plant all of the wheat and the rice that they can in order for it to grow, and so they can harvest it later in the spring. And this alliance of these terrible bandits and samurai who are preying on this town, they come by and they see that they really have no food, but they are planting. So they're like, hey, we'll come back in the spring and basically just take the harvest. They'll harvest it for us. Hey, this is going to be a very easy thing for us. And this is something that just tells you everything you need to know right off the bat. And this is within the first 3 minutes of the film because Kurosawa is somebody who never begins sort of with an intro. He always just starts right into the action. The first shot of this film are horses running through the landscape with these pretty heavily armored individuals who have swords, and they have a pretty one particular one has a really big helmet that comes out as horns above his head to as a audio commentary explains, that helmet was to signify the leader. It was supposed to draw attention. Your eyes definitely go right to him when he shows up on screen, and he gives a dialogue of, "Oh, let's come back when the harvest is done." And one of the villagers happens to hear this when they had gone off the road, because they're on horses, they're on the road overlooking the village down in the valley. And this random villager has heard this plan that this gang of bandits have agreed to. And he runs down to the village, tells everybody. Everyone is just very emotional about it. You have the very Kurosawa emotions going on, where it's very exaggerated. When people are upset, they cross their arms and they come down and squat, and they are just, it's very I guess kabuki like. I'm not particularly sure if that is a kabuki technique of over exaggerating movements and emotions, but this is something Kurosawa uses in about every single movie of his, and this one really uses that to its greatest potential. And I really enjoy the performances of everybody in this film, even the unnamed characters, because all of them are distinct and memorable. And when I was watching it last night with the audio commentary, I was just really struck by how everybody has a moment to shine. We have our main seven samurai that the film is named after, and we have many villagers who we come to know. We get to know the village elder. We get to know the various farmers that are within this village. We get to know some of the children who are sort of helping in their own way of keeping morale up, because the training in one scene with Toshiro Mifune, he's also in this film, and this is probably one of his best performances, personally. But Toshiro Mifune's character, Kikuchio, he is training villagers on how to stand with the spears, how to fight, just military discipline. And we learn throughout the film that Toshiro Mifune's character was never a samurai, and he is trying to reach this point. But the children always give sort of a release of tension, because Toshiro Mifune is very expressive in his performance, and he was told by Kurosawa, just have fun with your performance. You are somebody who is going to be a little bit of a comic relief, but also a very depthful character, and just have fun with it. And Toshiro Mifune, again, this is one of his best roles, and he is training these villagers, and the kids are watching, the kind of observing what they are doing, trying to understand what they're watching. And so Toshiro Mifune, he starts scolding some of the villagers and talking about how they'll probably die if they don't take this seriously, and he's just really trying to pound them into shape before this gang comes back. And the kids, they see Toshiro Mifune acting this way, and they just think it's funny, because he is somebody who is very bombastic, and a lot of his performances improvised, from what I understand from the audio commentary. But the kids always serve as sort of the emotional core of what this village is trying to do, because they are growing and planting, and the kids, they're stuck in this cycle of bandits coming, they get raided, steal all the resources, more come back, and they keep taking and taking, and they are growing up in this very turbulent time, and I think that's what Kurosawa is really obsessed with, and that I really enjoy about his works is that he doesn't look for the big hero in his stories. It's always the everyday person. If you look at Rashomon, we have a woodcutter character. We have, in Redbeard, we have a doctor who is also played by Toshiro Mifune. And in Akira, we have Takashi Shimura, who is also in this film playing Kanbei, the sort of leader samurai. He is playing a sort of bureaucratic political figure of just stamping permits for, I think, the environmental councils in Tokyo. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that's sort of what Kurosawa is always focused on. He's not looking for your big leader and exploring him. He's exploring always the little person, the everyday person. And I really respect and appreciate that about his films. And in this film, everybody is represented. Everybody has a line. Everybody has a character. And they provide a heartbeat to the village that the samurai sort of become committed to saving. And I just really love how one scene leads to another in this film, because after the villagers sort of have the freak out of, oh my gosh, there are bandits coming for our harvest in the spring, they go to the village elder and he's like, okay, go find 4 samurai, I don't know. And so they go to town and they start looking for samurai. They stop people. Some of them get really mad at them and threaten to beat them, and we have our first introduction to the core 7 samurai that we have. And the first one that we meet is Kanbei, who is played by Takashi Shimura, who is a regular in Kurosawa's work. And he is the older man that we see, well, not the older man, but the older woodcutter in Rashomon, played by the same actor. And he's really great in this film. He is the leader. And during the commentary, I think it's Tony Raines, maybe Donald Ritchie. It's sort of the middle 2 audio sequences, because each person recorded their own section of the film. They had 4 people record. They had the first person do the first half of disc 1, or part 1 of the film, and then someone for the second half, and then intermission, and then we have the final half, which was split by 2 people. So that's how the commentary is. But Kanbei's introduction is just one of the best scenes ever in film, in my opinion. I think it could be a great short film if you were testing the waters with Kurosawa, because this is a 3.5-hour movie. I haven't mentioned that. This is a behemoth of a film, but it does not feel that way. It feels like an hour, maybe. And Kanbei's introduction is just perfection, as I've said. Our villagers who are looking for samurai, they enter town. They see a large gathering of people. They go to that gathering. There's a man shaving his head. And this is one of the most famous introductions in any Kurosawa film. I'm trying to think of any other ones. I think Rashomon may be a big one that has a really great intro for the characters, but I think Kanbei's introduction is just the best, because he's shaving his head. He is a samurai. He is the leader later on in the film. And what Kanbei does is that there is a child who is being held hostage by somebody who is hungry and is demanding food. So he has taken this little boy and been like, okay, Mom, go cook us some, or cook me some rice and give it to me, or I will kill your child. And so Kanbei swoops in, and he's here with his samurai ordeals. And one of the major points of the audio commentary was that him shaving his head was something that you don't do for samurai. It's something to do with the hair and all that. I didn't understand it too well, but because what he is doing in rescuing this child, it actually is a samurai-like action to do, because it's not all of them that shave their heads. Usually they grow it out, and I'm just trying to kind of understand why it is against the samurai code to shave your head, but in his pursuit to save this child, he is doing the samurai thing. It's a really interesting sort of contradiction of two ideals that actually reveal the ideal of the samurai. And in this scene, he is given a tray of rice balls by the mother, and he walks up and he's like, "Hey, I'm a traveling holy man. Can I please give you some steam balls for you and the kid out?" And the bandit guy, hostage taker, is like, "Okay, throw them here." And he's like, "Okay," and he throws them. And while we don't see this on screen, but we hear some commotion within as the bad guy goes for the food, and Kanbei runs in to this hut, and he saves the child. And actually, before he does that, he runs in and we hear a sword fight. We don't see what is going on. Seconds later, we have the first, at least at the time of the audio recording, because I did not notice, I never even processed this fact, but the first time that slow motion and normal speed was used in an action scene. This is the first time this has happened. And the way that they did this is that Kanbei slashes the guy a few times and throws him out the door, presumably slashes him. He is thrown out the door, we see this. And he stumbles out, and they have two cameras. One is sort of focused in on the bandit running out, and then the other one is sort of held back. The one zoomed in is on a very fast 100 frames per second camera, and it can only record for like a second at a time, maybe 2 seconds. And the other camera that is farther back, it's 30 frames a second. So your standard sort of shutter speed, or whatever they call it. Yeah, you know what I mean. And he runs out, and Kanbei is still out of sight in the hut. And we're seeing this slow motion where the guy is grasping for his back because he's been slashed. And he runs out, he's going in slow motion, then fast, then slow, then fast. And he falls to the ground, and out comes Kanbei with the boy in his arms, and hands it off to the mother. And the villagers that we have been following, this is all from their perspective as they're watching this ordeal happen. And they look at Kanbei, and they're like, "We want him. We definitely need him for our quest. We're going to go ask him if he will help us." And in comes Kikuchio, who is played by Toshiro Mifune. And he has been in the crowd. He and Kanbei actually share a very amazing exchange, or at least looks, because Kanbei is shaving his head, and he's when he rises after shaving his head, he sees Kikuchio, and Kanbei and him just kind of look at each other, and the camera's going back and forth between them. And one thing to note, just another insane kind of breakthrough that Kurosawa did, is that he was able to use technology that had a very compressed depth of field. So far away objects are not blurry when it's focused in on a near subject, and vice versa. If it's zoomed in and focused in on something far away, the foreground is not blurry. Kurosawa really utilizes this in order to have a character right in your face, and then covering half of the screen and somebody in the back reacting and sort of interacting with whoever the subject is at the front. And we get those shots a lot in this, and we even have 3 or 4 different layers of visual information going on, because in this scene, the villagers are behind the crowd of people. You are looking through 2 heads and the shoulders here, and you're looking down, and they're covering up a major part of the screen, but ahead of them is the crowd, and ahead of that crowd, all in one frame. Beyond the crowd, we have Kikuchio sort of kind of stalking Kanbei and sort of investigating, while Kanbei is the furthest subject, along with the mother of the boy who was taken hostage. And oh my gosh, he does this the entire movie. And every frame, I mean, I mentioned in the Rashomon video, every frame a painting YouTube channel to discuss or to sort of further investigate how Kurosawa does his reframing and does not cut from one shot to the other. Instead, he pulls the camera back and he goes that way or he goes that way. And this movie, just to go back to my original point of the Every Frame a Painting YouTube channel, that is the perfect description for the cinematography in this film. Every frame, you could pause it and set it as your background on your computer. This movie is just so well shot. The cinematography in this is just, oh my gosh. You have to see it to believe it. That's all I will say. But from there, our villagers are like, yeah, let's go get Kanbei. He's going to be a great resource for us to really fight back against the bandits who are coming. And as they're walking, you see Kikuchio just sort of sprint past the camera, and the villagers, our 2 villagers who were chosen to be sort of the finders of the samurai, they are baffled. They're like, oh, who's this guy? He's running past, and he's like, hey, you, Kanbei, like, I want to be assistant or whatever. And Kanbei, Kikuchio, and the villagers are all sort of talking to each other and trying to recruit Kanbei, because Kanbei is such a great example of a samurai, because he did not really cause any injury to anybody except for the bad guy. And this is something that samurai were very concerned with, is limiting harm to innocents. And so that's why they were hired a lot, because they were tasked with protecting innocent people. And this is something that Kurosawa really focused on in these samurai films that he did, is that he never did the 1700s into the 1800s, which is what a lot of people were doing at this time with Kenji Mizoguchi, for example, with Life of a Horror. I mean, that was 1700s, I believe, late 1700s. And for this movie, it is, I was reading up on Wikipedia, the sort of behind the scenes that I didn't know, just to kind of gather whatever else information I could get. And one of it was sort of breaking down the scroll that Kikuchio has that outlines his family line of farmers that he's part of. And he wants to become a samurai to bring honor to his family name. And Kikuchio, what he does is he has the date of his birth on it, and somebody was able to sort of cross-reference it and find that this is the 1300s that this movie is taking place in. And I find that very fascinating, because this is not a period that is really ever explored in film, because we don't really know too much about it. At least I don't know anything about it. And I assume that because it's so far back in history, 800 years, I mean, that's pretty major, or at least 600 years. But this is a really fascinating period to look at, and Kurosawa himself talks about how he was really focused in on sort of the concept of samurai being hired to repel bandits, to overthrow tyrants that were holding an entire town in sort of bondages, and were kind of restricting them, really heavy taxes, all of that. And that is something really fascinating to me. I really valued and appreciated that when the audio commentary brought it up. But after that, the villagers, Kanbei and Kikuchio, they go to an inn in town, basically, because they're on the outskirts of it when they have the ordeal happen. And they come into town, go to the inn, and Kanbei is like, hey, start looking around, start recruiting. And so the villagers, they just start asking people. And we even get an amazing cameo that I never noticed. The audio commentary basically said, hey, pause the movie real quick. Here is Tatsuya Nakadai, who is one of my favorite actors of all time. He is so good in everything he does. I highly recommend the film by Masaki Kobayashi named Harakiri. I don't see it up on my list for this month, but he's really great in that, and especially in the film he did before that by the same director, the 9.5-hour film, The Human Condition. My God, Tatsuya Nakadai is perfect in that film. Go check it out if you haven't already. But the test that Kanbei tells the villagers to give the candidate samurai is for one of the villagers to hide behind the doorframe with a big stick and swing down the moment he sees the samurai come in. If the samurai is able to stop it, and he understands the situation, because some of them do stop the bamboo stick and kind of get pissed off at these villagers and storm off, but the ones that they are able to convince, they find it amazing that they are having this test. And one of the samurai that we meet, he is recruited by Kanbei because he already knows him. Kanbei runs into an old friend, and this person, I should have wrote down his name and the actor's name, but this samurai is sort of the lighthearted one of the group. He is laughing. He is just having a great time talking to Kanbei and sort of recounting how he escaped sort of a fiery blaze in a trench during a major battle. That was the last time that Kanbei ever saw this guy. And so Kanbei is catching up with him, and the villagers come in. They're like, hey, who's that? And he's like, oh, that's our third samurai. So yeah, and then they hear scuffles, and they come out to the major thoroughfare of this town, and they see everybody's running one direction. And Kanbei and the villagers follow, and also the friend of Kanbei. And they see the next samurai who is going to be recruited, and he is stripping off branches from a stick, along with somebody else who is doing that. And we come to find out that the non-samurai of the group has been challenged to sort of, whoever gets hit first loses. And there's only one chance. And of course he wins, comes up to Kanbei, and Kanbei proposes to him the plan of protecting this village from the bandits. And he doesn't give an answer. And we get a very emotional scene after that, where Kanbei, Kikuchio, the villagers, the three sort of comic relief characters who have been sort of bothering our main characters and making them feel bad, and all of them are sort of sitting around a campfire in this inn, and they're all talking about sort of the impossibility of the task at hand. And they finish talking about this, and one of them, the young villager, he's on the edge of tears. And they all look up, and they see that the samurai from earlier who was in the duel, he's standing there, and he has the same look as them. How long has he been there? Did he hear everything? Most likely, we don't know. He just sort of cuts right there. And everyone's like, whoa, how long have you been there? And then he agrees. And now we have 4 samurai now. I should note that Kikuchiyo is not one of the samurai. We have Kanbei, we have his friend, we have the new dueling swordsman, and then we have sort of Kikuchiyo following along. We're not going to count him yet. And we recruit the rest of the samurai, and now it's time to go back to the village. And that is just the first half. That is when the intermission comes in. And the second half of the film is all about preparing the town, creating moats, creating sort of alleyways where you drive the enemy through and you have archers at the end. Kanbei is a strategist. We don't know his background really at all. And he is drawing maps, he is creating plans. And one of my favorite things about this film is that circles are very important in this film. This is a motif that Kurosawa uses over and over and over again. And one of the sort of main reasons why that's important is that Kurosawa really wanted to signify equal rights of all 7 samurai. Because Kanbei creates a banner for them, which is the cover of this. This is the banner. Take away the text, obviously. But it has the 6 circles to represent 6 of the samurai. And then we have a triangle here, which is a little covered up by the text. But that is to signify Kikuchiyo, because he is not a samurai, he's a farmer. But it's a triangle. It can be transformed into a circle. So that's what his entire crest is. And that was something that completely blew my mind this watch, because I was listening to audio commentary, as I've said. And that was something that I think Tony Raines talks about, Donald Ritchie. And I was just like, wow. Like, I noticed that circles were major, but I never really thought about the meaning of it. And I was really blown away by that, because Kikuchiyo, he has what it takes to be a samurai. He just has to convince everybody else. And so what he does is he does that. He proves to everybody that he is the 7th samurai. And I will not discuss the ending, but not everybody survives. And it is absolutely amazing how it turns out. The villagers are very lucky with who they ended up with. But another part of the whole circle motif is that early in the film, when we have our one villager who detaches himself from the circle of villagers who are sort of freaking out about sort of the bandits coming. They're freaking out about it, and the young villager who is like, I don't want to just give them our wheat and our rice and everything we own. Like, I don't want to do that. I want to step up to them and really protect what is ours. And this young villager, all the older villagers, and they are all together in a circle. He's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to just lay down and let them, do what they want. And so he goes to the village elder and is like, hey, like, we need to do this. And that's when he sends them off to find 4. And his hope was to find 10 samurai, but he finds that 7 is a happy medium, which is actually the exact median between 4 and 10, which I find fun. But the circle in the beginning is to sort of signify the entire unit of the town, and how the young villager, he's the lone rebel of the town, so he's not going to lie down and take it. And I find that such a interesting sort of visual motif, because you can bring so much meaning into this. And the final sort of use of the circle in this film, or not really the final one, but the last one I noted, was that when Kanbei is giving the plans to everybody, he creates an entire map of what the entire town is right now when they put in the moats and all that. And he draws a circle for each person. They have, at one point of the film, Kikuchio and I think two other samurai, they go and rescue one of the women who have been kidnapped by the bandits who have been sort of spying on the village and trying to get numbers. Kikuchio gets involved in like a reconnaissance mission, which is really fun if you're into that. And he is able to find how many people are in this bandit clan. And he comes back and he's like, hey, Kanbei, there are 20 something of them. I think it's as high as 50, maybe. I'm not sure. I think it is closer to like 20 to 30 in that range, and the 7 of them. So it's a pretty major task at hand, and they're all mounted. All the bandits have horses. The samurai do not. They do not get on horses and fight them back. They use arrows. They use moats. They use traps. They even make a spike trap where they lay a false ground and a bunch of people fall in, and it wipes out a good number of them. But as people get killed, Kanbei, he's not really fighting, at least in the beginning of the battles. He is just taking his brush and checking off on all the circles. And the final section of this battle is him involved, and he's no longer updating it. So in your head, you're following along with the numbers, and it is so fun. This entire movie is just amazing. I love this movie. This is a movie that I could watch any day. I was really nervous last night beginning it because this is a 3.5-hour movie, and I recorded my Life of a Haru discussion, which was about 30-ish minutes, and I uploaded it. Had dinner, all that. It was like 7:30 when I started. And I was very nervous that I would fall asleep, but I did not. This is a movie that anybody can watch. This is one of the most timeless films of all time. It is consistently ranked as the best film of all time, if not top 3 maybe. And the thing I really, really appreciate about it is that this is a very rewatchable film. There's so much going on. You can always bring something new to it. This is a movie that changes as you age. This is a movie that I think anybody can watch. I mean, I would be happy if this was the only movie I watched for the rest of my life, every day. I would not actually do that because I do love variety in my movies, but at least in my selection of movies to watch. But Seven Samurai really has it all. It has romance, it has action, it has the human condition being explored. You have betrayal, you have traitors, you have scummy villagers. One of them, I was thinking of Life of a Haru during this particular scene, but there's a scene in this film where there's a villager who goes with them. I almost dropped my phone, sorry about that. But there's a villager who goes with the people. Oh, no, he doesn't. He stays back and does not want to meet the samurai. They get word that the samurai are coming, and this villager just freaks the fuck out. He walks into his home with a far-off stare. His daughter is bathing and is brushing her hair and washing her hair, and it's really long and very well taken care of. It's just, her hair is just beautiful. I'm quite jealous, although I don't like having long hair. I like having the one side, whatever. But she's asking him, like, what are you doing, Dad? Like, why are you looking at me? And he brings out a razor, and you think, oh my gosh, he's going to kill her because he's afraid of the samurai. But he just goes up to her and starts slashing her hair, and she's screaming. Everyone's getting involved with it, and it's really demoralizing the village because they hear her screaming and they're like, oh my gosh, the samurai coming. And this guy is like really stoking the fire that the village is feeling, at least a fire of fear, because everyone was doing pretty okay at this point before he did that. Everyone was very nervous, scared, obviously. And the samurai are coming, and everyone just freaks out after this because they start coming in, and Kikuchio, during this freak out, he's like, you know what? I'm going to try something. And he starts ringing the bell, the warning bell, to say that intruders are coming. And all the samurai don't know that he's doing this, so they all pop up. They're ready for battle. Kanbei immediately is surveying the situation. Did they come from the east, from the west, from the mountains, from the valley? Where did they come from? And Kanbei is arguably the main character of this film. I've always felt this way, but Tony Raines really focused in on this fact during his section of the commentary track, because he is sort of the ringleader. I mean, he is. And he has all of the plans, and he supports everybody so well. He is the main character to me. For the first few watches, I felt like it was an ensemble cast, and it is, for the most part, but if you had to choose a single character to be sort of the face of this movie, I would say it would be Kanbei, because he's the one who steps up to the task and helps these villagers by helping them find more samurai. And he finds them a lot more than they thought. I mean, the village elder, he wanted 10. I mean, that was unrealistic, I think. But they were looking for 4, and they came back with almost double that, and it's so awesome. But you really see Kanbei during this kind of false alarm, really showing his skills as a planner, because he's looking down all the roads. He already knows the layout of the town because the villagers who recruited him, they told him everything, told him the situation, all of that. And it's really sort of amazing thinking about what his background is. Was he an army general or something? Was he a big bandit guy who did something terrible and is now repenting for the rest of his life to pay back sort of for an injustice? We don't know. We don't know anything about most of these characters before they appear on screen. And this is something that I just love so much. That is just amazing. But Kikuchio, played by Toshiro Mifune, he just lays into all of the villagers because they are not organized, they are not disciplined, they just freak out. And Kikuchio proved all the other samurai right, because they were a bit pissed off when he did that. He was like, oh my, Kanbei especially was like, why did you do that? That could have been trouble for us. And he's like, they're not ready. We need to train them. And that's when they start training them. And my God, I could go on all day about this movie, but I just absolutely love it. I think everybody should watch it. And one thing that I really want to leave off of in order to sort of tease future discussions that I'll do, but one of the big inspirations for Kurosawa was John Ford. This is a relationship that I think a lot of people don't realize, but the samurai genre and the Western genre are so entwined with each other. They inspire each other, and you see a feedback loop. What is sort of like a log house. You see how each movie impacts the other. And this was a movie that was remade into one of the biggest, most popular westerns of all time, The Magnificent Seven. And this is not the only Kurosawa film that was remade into a western. I will not expand upon that because that is something that I will discuss further later. But wow, what a great film. I just really love this movie. I'm very interested to see the original vision for this story, because Kurosawa began to write for this movie, and he wanted to do a day in the life of a samurai. And he started writing it, he got a few pages in, and he just felt like there wasn't enough detail or information in historical texts to really show what the day in the life of a samurai was. And so he gave it up. And instead, he and his writing partners went to a hotel, I believe, that had sort of a panoramic window setting to where they could open it and there's nature. And they go into this in the documentary, which I've seen I don't know how many times. I didn't need to rewatch it to get my main points out. But when they show where they wrote the screenplay for this, you can sort of feel like a electricity within you when you think about one of the best films of all time, if not the best film, being written by three people like us, sitting down and never leaving that room for, I think, a month. They said they only ate, slept, and wrote the script in that room. And it is absolutely amazing because this is a pretty involved film. To prepare for it, just to quickly go over this so I can close out, Kurosawa wrote down biographies for each character. He drew sort of silhouettes of every character and the costumes and what actors he had in mind for each one. Kanbei, Kikuchio, and a few of the other ones he had already sort of casted in his head, especially Toshiro Mifune. But it is amazing how much work went behind the scenes for this film, and especially during the filming of it, because they filmed it in winter. This was a very long shoot. During the final battle where they are fighting in mud, for those who know, you know. If not, watch the movie. I beg of you. They are fighting in the mud, and I think it's Takashi Shimura, maybe Toshiro Mifune, in an interview, archive interview. He mentions how it was winter at this time, and the water was 10 degrees below freezing levels, and all of them were in danger of frostbite, hypothermia, everything. And I believe it was the cinematographer, somebody who wasn't an actor. They got pretty horribly injured by this, at least for the rest of their life. They, I think he said it was like snowburn on his face or something that really sort of messed his skin up on his face for the rest of his life. And yeah, there's just so much more I could talk about, but I really hope this was enough for you to convince you to watch this film. This is my favorite film of all time. Most days, my opinions change about what my top 5 are, or top 3, whatever. But this one is consistently number 1, maybe number 2. I just love this film. Thank you all so much for watching, and please have a great rest of the day.